Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sonja Lallemand, and I am an extension educator in horticulture, serving Franklin, Jackson, Perry, Randolph, and Williamson County. So I am way south in the state. This afternoon presentation will focus on the home orchard. I will take a break halfway through the program, and I'll answer questions then as well as at the end of the program. Today we'll talk about home orchard, and for me it's probably the most rewarding of gardening activities is being able to harvest fresh fruits in my own backyard. Most parts of the state we can all grow tree fruits as well as small fruits. Each one that you grow will have to be adapted to your particular region. And hopefully this afternoon we'll go through some ideas for you, and you'll be able to explore some new varieties as well. This presentation is divided in two parts. In the first part, we'll look at general considerations for getting started, and the second part will look at management of your own orchard, variety selections, and very brief look at disease management. Growing any kind of fruit can be a lot of fun. It can also be a lot of headache, but if you pay attention, it is very, very rewarding. Fruits are considered a perennial crop, so bearing over a period of many years depending on the species. Some blueberries can grow as many as 30 years, so you really have to pay attention to site preparation. To be successful growing any particular fruit, knowledge of growth requirement is very important, and this will help you also choose the best adapted fruit type for your site and determine the time and care necessary to succeed. There are many good reasons to grow on your own small fruit. I'm sorry, right now we're on slide 4. I have to remember to let you know which slide I'm on for those of you who are doing it by phone. Small fruits, first of all, the taste. I think some of the cultivars that we can purchase from specialty nurseries have much better taste than what we find in the stores, and that would be for me the main reason why I would want to grow fruits at home. Availability, they're right there in your own backyard, and you can have them when you need them instead of having to hunt around trying to find some fruits that are ripe. And sometimes some of the fruits that you want, such as gooseberries and currants, are very seldom seen in grocery stores. Efficiencies, some can be grown in very small areas. There are new cultivars out that you can grow in very large pots. So having a small backyard is not necessarily a hindrance for growing fruits. They can also be incorporated in your flower beds as well. So it doesn't have to be a separate orchard, a separate area of the yard. Small fruits in particular are less time consuming than vegetable gardening, and they are easy to care for when proper planting and management steps are taken. Slide 5. They're a great cost saving. Fresh fruits, and particularly small fruits, blackberries, some strawberries, or even currants, or some of the smaller fruits, sometimes are very, very expensive in the grocery stores when you do find them. And growing your own can save you a lot of money. It's a lot of fun to do, being able to harvest as well as eat the berries straight off the trees when you are out and about in your own backyard. And today, with the scares that we have with all the diseases, safety has become an issue. More and more the USDA is trying to regulate certain farm practices, so having your own fruits in your own backyard really minimizes safety concerns, because you know what you have applied and when you have applied the pesticides, and when you can then harvest and handle the fruit. Hopefully you'll be able to handle the fruits properly. Also, small fruits and fruits in general have a health benefits. They are very rich in vitamins, minerals, anti-cancer agents, and other nutrients needed for one's well-being. Slide 6. Limit the size to your family needs, and that is very, very crucial in trying to manage a small orchard. Don't overplant, don't put more than you can handle. Know what your family is likely to enjoy. Don't plant some things that you've never had before, and or if you had it before, your family didn't care for it. Don't waste the money, don't waste the time. So keep the size of the planting to your family need. And also, what you are going to do with the planting is going to be another determining factor. Is it just for fresh eating, or is it for canning, freezing? What is it that you are going to do with it? So plan accordingly. When you're dealing with fruits, like a lot of other vegetables and flowers, well-drained and fertile site in full sun are a must. If you are going to have shade on the planting, it needs to be maybe late afternoon, but 6 to 8 hours of full sun really is very, very important in producing good quality fruits. Place the planting close to the home so it's easy to tend to it. If you don't have an irrigation system installed, then you can easily get the hose out there and get the water onto the plants when it's needed. The state of Illinois has 4 different growing zones, so make sure that you choose cultivars that are adapted to your region. Lately we've seen in the news that the northern part of the state had lost the peach crop. Well, peaches are better suited to a zone 6 and above rather than zone 5, where the temperatures get too low for growing peaches and have results every year. So make sure that you get something that is specifically for your region. Very important also is the purchase of virus-free certified stocks. That happens when you really choose your fruits from a reliable company. Make sure that you contact the company if you are not sure of the quality of their planting, but also talk to other gardeners, other people who have grown the fruits, and they will be able to give you some references as to where to go to purchase that. The next slide, you should have received a handout. It is just an overview of some luscious landscape plants. It's from the book Landscaping with Fruit, and what I found was interesting in that book, besides the description of every cultivar that is mentioned, was this table. This is just a very brief sample of the table, but it also gives you the ornamental qualities of the plants. But the alpine strawberries, also landscape uses. It's a very small plant. It has a mounding habit, so it can easily be used as a low border, and it does stay green for several weeks into the winter. Apples can be grown as a specimen or a shade tree, and what's very good about looking at an apple tree is in the spring, all the blossoms, the tree is completely covered in light pinkish white, or if you have a crab apple, some of those flowers will again be of different colors. And also some of the, let's say on the currants, you have the leaves in the summer, and the American plums, the tree form, the leaves in summer and the fall. So this is a book that I think you probably should look for and even check it out at the library if you can find it. Slide 8. Site preparation. I cannot really not emphasize enough proper site preparation, because these the fruit trees, whether large fruit trees or small fruits, they are perennial plants, so they're going to be in that location for a very long time. Also, make sure that you know the past history of the site. What was it used for? were there any disease issues in the site. Verticillium wilt is a soil-borne disease that can create significant problem if it is present, and usually it results in plant death. Strawberries, raspberries, blackberries are very susceptible to verticillium wilt, and these plants should not be planted on a site where tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, okra, peas, beets, peas, or roses were grown in the past. So research the previous use of the particular piece of soil where you're going to put your orchard. Prepare the soil as thoroughly as for a garden vegetable, so double digging or using a rototiller, whatever piece of machinery that you have, to really break down the soil and have a very smooth area for planting. It always start a year before. It's very important that you deal with your permanent weeds, your perennial weeds. Get rid of them. Don't let them stay in the area, because later on you will have a lot of difficulties in dealing with those and trying to grow the crop. Quackgrass, clover, if they are present, make sure that you really get rid of them. Have a soil test and apply the recommended amount of nutrients. A basic soil test will provide you with the pH level that you need. If it is too high, then you need to get it within range. Blueberries require a very low pH, 4.2 to 4.6. So, and it takes about a year to get the soil pH down if it is possible. So all your amendments need to go in at least in the fall prior to planting blueberry bushes. Add manure or other soil amendment as recommended by the soil test, and that is very important. And this way your soil will be ready to go in the spring when your plants get there. This section will look at planting, pruning, spraying, and fertilizing practices. Bare root fruit trees, they will come to you from most nurseries at the dormant stage. When you purchase them, most nurseries will ask you to give them a date at which the plants will be delivered. In order for you to be able to plant these trees, your soil need to be ready. Don't plan on taking out that sod in the spring. Like this year, we've had so much water that fruit growers who got their new plants had to put them aside because we had way too much water. So that is something that you don't ever want to do, is to plant in mud. When you do get your fruit trees and you're ready to plant, that's when you would hydrate the roots. Otherwise, you need to open the package, make sure that your plants are alive, and if they are moldy or look dead, contact your supplier immediately. You want to do the planting as soon as you can, and hydrating the roots is very important. This way it will give the plant a boost when starting in their new spot. 2 hours is usually adequate for hydration. Prune back any damaged root. This way you're not putting roots that are damaged, and you're not opening up the plant to soil-borne pathogens. If you cannot get to that, that's when you would consider healing in these plants, and by putting them on their side at about a 45-degree angle, spread out the roots, cover the roots with soil, sprinkle the covered roots with water to keep them moist, and keep them in that sheltered area until you are ready to plant them in their permanent spot. Make sure that you keep the area hydrated, because if the roots dry out, then you will have lost your plants. Sometimes some shrubs like blueberries, if you purchase 1 or 2-year-old plants, sometimes they will come in small pots. If you can put them in right away, your soil is ready, go ahead and do that. But if not, then replant these small pots into a larger container until you are ready to put these shrubs in place. Blueberries and strawberries should be planted at the same depth that they were in the nursery or in the small pots. Don't try to put them too low or too high. Try to put them back where they had been. It's very important for that. Strawberry in particular are very sensitive to being planted too deep or the crown will rot. Other plants like gooseberries, brambles, and grapes may be planted deeper than they were in the nursery. I use a starter solution, a fertilizer solution, very high in phosphorus and potassium to help promote early root growth, and that is easily purchased at any of the box store or at a good nursery. Slide 11. When you receive your bare root strawberries, plant as soon as possible, and that's when planting ahead is very, very important. Have your bed ready the previous fall, and loosen your soil, and in a planting hole, give the roots plenty of space to develop, and your plants will be ready to go, and you will have strawberries eventually. Pruning, that's a very, very important practice. It helps really to develop the framework of the young plant. You want the plant growing upward, not sideways. You really want to develop the branches at the correct angle that will carry the load of the fruit seed. The angle needs to be at about a 60 degrees for tree fruits on those branches. So the load of fruit will eventually bring it down to about a 90, and the plants will not break. But if you start at 90 and you put fruits on that, that will be too much, and the branches will start going down. Pruning also helps to maintain the vigor of the plant and productivity by removing excess wood and unproductive areas of the plant. Then you are focusing a lot of the nutrients in very few points within the tree. The tree stores a lot of sugars and protein in its root and goes into dormancy. So in the spring, it is completely loaded with a lot of nutrients and it's ready to go. So by eliminating a lot of these extra points, you have more nutrients going out. So the tree will develop. Oh, somebody. Hello? Okay. So you have more nutrients going out in fewer branches. In positioning the fruit zone, you will make it easier for you, for one, to be able to harvest instead of having to climb into the tree to trying to find where these the fruits are if everything is a big tangled mess. But it also you're also making sure that your production zone is well exposed to sunlight and the tree is open to good airflow. Airflow is very important in controlling diseases because in the spring when we have all this wet weather, it's very important for these trees, whether it's a tree fruit or a small fruit, that they dry out as quickly as possible. Positively affect fruit size and fruit quality. As I mentioned before, you have a lot of nutrients that are going to fewer points, so the fruit size is going to benefit from more nutrients coming into that flower. And also removing a lot of excess fruit by but getting a crop load that is adequate for the size of the tree will help you get good quality fruits as well. Plant health is very important to maintain. Proper fertilization and proper pruning will help to do that. You don't want to overcrop a tree fruit or a small fruit. Anything that you're growing, you're putting too much on it, you're depleting the plant very, very quickly. So by pruning and removing excess branches, you prolonging the life of that plant. Some of the things, slide 14, some of the things that you should never do when pruning is to prune too close to the bark, as shown in the picture. That branch was removed and the tree has been cut into. This kind of cut about probably 2 or 3 inches above the crotch takes a lot of energy for the plant to kill that extra little stub. Unless it's absolutely needed, that's something that you should try to avoid as much as possible. The ideal cut is about a half an inch to an inch away from the color, and that part of the color contains cells that will help the plant shut down that cut and heal very, very quickly and keep pathogens from getting into the cut. Because when you open the tree, as you do in that first image, pathogens can easily get in because the cells have been removed. And in the stub cut, there's too much for the plant to deal with to try to kill. That gives other pathogens another way of accessing the tree. Very quickly, we'll go through apples, pears, and plums, the way they are grown. It's usually in a central leader, and the scaffold limbs are usually 4 to 9. The scaffolds are placed vertically along the leader at about 18 inches apart. And once established, then it's moderate annual pruning, and that should help you get a good, healthy tree. On the left, you can see apple trees before they are pruned, and on the right, that's a fin espalier. That's a special way of growing a tree when you don't have a whole lot of space. Instead of growing it in 3D, then you grow it on a two-dimensional space, and you can get fruits either way you choose to grow. These slides we're looking at some of the dwarfing rootstocks, which is probably more appealing to homeowners. M27, the tree will go to about 6 feet. P22, M9, Bud 9, about 10 feet. Sometimes it's not easy to know what type of rootstock you have, but the M27 would be a very dwarfing rootstock, and the 10 feet will and above will be a little bit closer to a semi-dwarf tree. Pears are usually 30 feet high, but if you can get a dwarfing rootstock, which is not easy to find, you can get pear trees that will grow to about 8 feet. On the right side of the slide, I've listed some cultivars that you can find at in any of the nurseries that specialize in tree fruits. Simply read the catalog and see what description sounds good, or talk to people who have grown these particular fruits. Now, the Beurre Blanc I have grown, and that is a pear that I really enjoy. It's a nice, crisp, sweet fruit, and so far it has done very well in my backyard. It does require some spraying, but other than that, it's doing fairly well. Medium-sized trees for apple, pears, and plums. In the plums, we have European, we have Japanese, and then we also have the Japanese-American hybrids. The prune plums are very sweet and dark, and that would be the top one on the left. The Reine Claude and the Green Gage are the yellow-green and very sweet. The Reine Claude is the one at the bottom, and the Green Gage is the yellow ones at the top. Those are smaller fruits, but really, really good flavor and good texture. Those are not the kind of things that you will find easily at a supermarket, but more likely to find at a farmer's market. Looking at peaches and apricots. They do not grow on a central leader. It's an open center. The scaffold limbs are connected to a very short space on the trunk. 3, 4, or 5 scaffold limbs from the open center framework, and every year we prune extremely heavily because peaches bear better on previous year, the 1-year-old branches. This is what a good peach tree that has been pruned properly will look like. Alpine strawberries, as I had mentioned before, they're very small fruits. The ones in the hands are the alpine strawberries, and the ones hanging on the right side of the slide are just they're grown in containers, and so that's why they are hanging. And the picture at the corner, at the bottom corner, those are alpine strawberries being used as a border plant. They're pointier, smaller fruits. The flavor is very intense if you get the right cultivar. They have a mounding habit. The fruit is held upright above the plant. They're usually 6 to 8 inches across in the clump, about 8 inches high. So they're not very large plants, and they are herbaceous, so they will die during the winter. But in the spring, you will find a little sprig that will come up, and then you can replant that. They seem to be very insect and disease resistant. The fruit blooms on and off. You have fruits on and off throughout the season. Can be used as an edging plant. Soil preparation is very crucial. Again, very rich in humus is really needed for strawberry production. A minimum of 4 hours of sun. So that's one of the few small fruits that will tolerate some shade. They're very shallow rooted, and very good idea to maintain a mulch layer all throughout the season to avoid losing soil perspiration. Very sensitive to dry conditions, so if you're in the southern part of the state, you really have to pay attention to soil dryness, especially when we get into July and August. You can easily replant, remove the clump, and pull some plantlets out and replant them. It's very simple and easy to do. So once you start losing production, perhaps a bit easier than most small fruit to renew. Or you can treat them as an annual. You can purchase the seeds, start them indoors, and be ready to go in the spring. They do very well in pots, but when you do anything in pots, remember you need to fertilize more often. The main pests are birds, but I think in my yard I have an elevated planting of these strawberries. I think the deer are also helping themselves to the fruits as well, so be careful where you put them. You can harvest them when they're fully ripe. They're very strong aroma, but the berries are very soft, so they do not store very well. So plan on eating them almost immediately. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break, and I will take questions, or if you want, we can answer questions later on.
Christian County has a question.
Go ahead.
On slide 7, you mentioned a book that would be helpful for people to use with orchard. I think it was called Landscaping with Fruit Trees.
No, this one was Landscaping. The title is Landscaping with Fruits. So they had all sorts of suggestions for all fruits, really. And the author is Reich. I have the information at the end of the presentation. It's in the last slide.
Yes, I see that now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kendall County?
Yes.
What type of fertilizer and how would you apply fertilizer to strawberry beds?
I usually put a lot. I start out my strawberry beds with a lot of compost, And after that, I have used a triple 10.
As a granular or a liquid?
As a granular, mix it into the planting prior to putting in the plants.
What would you use
Now,
after the plants are established?
pardon?
What kind of fertilizer would you use after the plants are established, and how would you apply it?
Well, usually when I redo my beds, because I use these alpine strawberries, and I redo my beds and I reapply more compost. If I use manure, I use a very low number fertilizer, so a triple 10. That's what I have used at home. Now, if you're doing a the strawberries, that not the alpine strawberries, but your regular strawberries that you would do at the time of renewal of the bed, when you remove all of the plants from the previous year to allow for the daughter plants to go into the matted row. That's when you would remove your old plants, you add your manure and fertilizer at that time. I've always used compost, and sometimes animal chicken manure, some animal manure. So I've always used like a minimal amount of minerals in there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a question from Lake County. I want to know whether we can use aged horse manure on fruit trees, specifically apples and pears.
Aged manure, any kind of manure, we always recommend to apply manure in the fall, not during the active growing season. Always put that in the fall.
Okay. And my second question is, do I use a multi-purpose spray, or do I use individual sprays for fungicide and individual spray for insecticide in the fruit growing season for the apples and pears?
We will get to that at the end.
Okay.
But there are recommendations, and if you are growing apples and pears, you do need to have a spray program in place to where you are spraying regularly to prevent a lot of the fungal diseases. You should really monitor insects and know when these insects are coming out if you're growing fruit trees.
Thank you.
Livingston County.
Sure.
Hi, I'm just wondering what varieties of apples and pears would be good that will produce within a relatively short framework. I'm not that young anymore, and I want it to be in my lifetime that I get to enjoy it.
Usually the smaller trees are produced. There are new cultivars that are able to you are able to get somewhat of a crop after about 3 or 4 years, and some of the smaller trees that are sold now on a semi-dwarf fruit stock, they do produce sooner. You don't have to wait the full 5 years to start harvesting fruits. So read the catalog, and often the nurseries will tell you. I don't know where is your county?
I'm in Livingston. I'm in
Where
the
is that? North?
North, yeah, north.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the cultivars for the northern part of the state, so you will have to check with the nurse.
It's north central. I'm sorry. It's
Yeah, again, you would have to check with check the catalog and see what goes best in your area.
all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
McDonough County here.
Yes.
Maybe we'll go over this later, I'm not sure. I have peach and apple trees that I would like to know when to thin out and how much to thin out the fruit on them. They would break the trees down if I didn't.
Yeah, you have to, usually with peaches, they bloom profusely, and so you do have to go out and just remove some flowers while the fruit is still blooming. That's how you remove the flowers. You just go in with the soft you can use a broom, you can use anything really that is not going to break down the fruit, but a broom usually works fine. You just run it through the branches and remove the flowers that way. And this way you reducing the number of plants the number of fruits that are going to be pollinated.
And is there a percentage or a fraction of that I should remove?
Not usually, but there are some guidelines for productions. I will almost at the end of the 5 minutes, so if you will give me your name and I can have that sent to you.
At the end or now?
At the end.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll go back. The question is, why am I focusing on strawberries, on alpine strawberries instead of traditional strawberries? I think we all have gone through, or at least as master gardeners, we've learned how to grow traditional strawberries. Alpine strawberries are just another fruit that I want to introduce to you for your consideration. That's the main thing, but cultivation practices are different from one to the other. Okay, we'll take a look at cane fruits, raspberries, blackberries, and loganberries, which is a mixture of the two. The cane fruits or brambles are biennial plants for the most part. The first cane that comes up is called the primer cane, and that's a vegetative cane. That first year there are no flowers, no fruits being born on that cane, and the second year you have a floricane. That same primer cane becomes then the floricane. The second year it bears the flowers and the fruits. But we do have some cultivars today that will bear on the primer cane. Then we have the everbearing. Those are the ones that are fruiting twice a year on the same cane. The first crop is at the front end of the cane. So once that's done, you remove that and lower on the cane, then they will bloom and fruit again. And we have a new category of dwarf raspberries that has been recently introduced. And we'll get to those in a minute. Pruning and training raspberries, that's also very important because you want to keep your fruits where you can reach them, and especially on the ones that do have thorns. It's not very pleasant trying to reach for the fruits, but I think most of us probably want to grow the thornless raspberries. That floricane, you remove it in late winter, and then thin the remaining canes 3 to 4 per square foot. Shorten the laterals 12 to 18 inches, and you're good to go in the spring with your canes. Pruning the primal cane raspberries, those are the ones that bloom and fruit on that first year. You remove the canes in the spring after fruiting, and if you want to crop them for the fall, then remove all the canes in late winter and they will bloom, and then you'll have your fall crop. So depending on the cultivar that you are planting, there are definite differences in pruning and training these raspberries. This is a new introduction. The company is Brazzleberries out of Oregon, and this recently just came out. I did purchase a plant this year, so this is the first time I'm growing it in a pot, and so far it is staying fairly small. It has bloomed. I've had a few fruits on it. So for people with a small yard, this might be an answer if you want to grow some raspberries. The compact plants, 24 to 36 inches. Mine is up to about 30 inches. So this is a new introduction. I believe last year was the first time that I saw them at the nurseries. They are thornless. There is no staking needed, and large patio containers, the 5-gallon containers, are more than adequate, I would think, to grow these raspberries. This particular cultivar in the picture is raspberry shortcake. Blackberries Just like the raspberries, they are also a biennial plant. We have a primocane and a floricane, and low maintenance, quick and easy pruning. They can grow very quickly and very fast and very tall, so you often have to prune them at least twice a year. The primocanes are tipped in the summer to force the growth of the laterals. Remove your dead floricanes in the winter after all the nutrients have gone back down to the roots, and thin the canes 5 to 6 cane per plant, and again shorten your laterals, and you're forcing a lot of the buds along those laterals to break, and therefore you'll have more flowers and more fruits. Loganberries, it's a very, very interesting fruit. It's a cross between a blackberry and a raspberry, and that came about in 1883 when the berry growers in California were trying to create a better commercial variety of blackberry. It resembles the blackberry. It tastes like both parents. Dark red fruit in color, also has primocane and floricane, and they do fruit earlier than the blackberries, and they do have thorns. They produce fruits for 2 months, so you need to harvest when the color is very deep purple. Red has more acidity. It's not quite as sweet. They do not last very long, so eating fresh and using them for juices and jams are a really good use of those berries. They're vining branches. They're more disease resistant than other berries, and the fruits mature at different rate, and that's why it's more difficult to grow it commercially, because you cannot find the fruit sometimes because the canopy is very, very thick. This is a picture of loganberries being grown on a trellis upright. So if you do use a trellising system, then you really have to pay attention in separating the canes of floricanes and the primocane, and again thinning laterals and shortening to maintain height. You need to have manageable length, and a fan system can be useful. It opens up the plant for better wind to go through, so you don't have to deal with a lot of foliar diseases that way. We'll talk about currants and gooseberries. For a while there in New York State, gooseberries had been on the no-no list because they did carry some diseases, but mostly produced in Europe, Great Britain, Poland, Germany, and so on. They are very, very common in as fresh berries, jam, jellies, and liqueurs. This table shows you some different cultivars. The American gooseberries are Pixwell and Downing, and they are very, very small thorns. On Pixwell, there are some on Downing and some on Poorman, and harvesting can be difficult, but the fruit really depends on when you harvest it. If you harvest it very green, then it is very tart, but if you let it get to the purple stage, it's a lot sweeter and much more pleasant to eat than when it's green. The black currant is probably better suited to southern Illinois than it is to than the red currant is. Fruits will range in color: dark red, pink, yellow, white, and beige. It's not something that you find very often, but in the past few years I've started to see black currants and some red currants at the farmers market. So some commercial growers are starting to pay attention to this type of fruits. Black currants are more mildew resistant, and we do have a lot of mildew in the southern part of the state, so you'll have to decide which probably the red currant is better suited for the northern part of the state. White Imperial, Viking, Concert, Crusader, Tatiana, those are the cultivars that I was able to locate in some catalogs, but there was no information on plant vigor, and they all seem to be resistant to powdery mildew and the white pine blister rust, except for white imperial. They do tolerate partial shade. They're more of a northern climate, so afternoon shade, they would benefit from that, and protect them from direct sun if you want the plant to last and be able to produce all throughout. Along the side of the building, a shady arbor, good air circulation is really important, and they do prefer rich, well-drained, high moisture holding capacity, so that means a lot of compost and manure added into the planting before you put your plant in, and after that using some mulch to keep that quality of the soil. Avoid sandy soil because the nutrients will drain and will not be available to the plant. Improve your soil texture, incorporate high organic matter, eliminate weeds just like everything else, and keep your pH at about 6.5. Purchasing from reliable nurseries, probably your #1 choice, rather than buying from stores that get the plants in and just let them sit and they're not taken care of properly. Best planted in the fall, which means that if that's what you're going to do, this summer you need to start preparing your soil so that when the plants do arrive, you can get them in the ground as quickly as possible. Or if not in the fall, but early in the spring, because the plants will start to grow fairly early. This is another way of growing gooseberries, sorry. Using them as a short espalier is a very interesting way of doing that. In so doing, you're improving air circulation, and you are also you can reduce then the amount of spray that you have to apply for this type of small fruit. They do produce fruit on older woods, so pruning judiciously is very important. So if you're going to do it, the first year there is no pruning, second year there is no pruning, so you would start pruning on year 3, removing the 2-year-old branches. And this like to sucker, so make sure that you are diligent about removing the suckers if you are training the gooseberries as an espalier. Currants, they fruit on 2 to 3-year-old shoots, so getting to know your plants is very, very important, and irrigation is probably one of the things that you would need to do for currants to really get some good quality fruits. They're very high nitrogen feeders, so lots of compost or applying nitrogen directly in the spring, and annual top dressing just around the drip line of the plant will get you a lot of nitrogen that way to the roots. 1/4 to 1/3 of a pound of triple 10 per plant in the fall. Avoid fertilizers with myriads of potash or potassium chloride that could lead to leaf scorch. Currants, aphids feed from underside of the young leaves towards the tip, anthracnose in leaf spot, cereus in wet, humid years. Again, paying attention to your planting, making sure that all your plants are open to good air circulation, and paying attention to what you have will really help you manage the pests in these small plants. Control your weeds, straw, grass clippings, sawdust, but if you're keeping a 3-inch layer or more of mulch a year around the drip line, that will definitely help with weed control. But in the winter, you may have to spread out that mulch layer because of mice. They love to go and hide in that mulch layer. Another small fruit that, at least down here, I've received several questions was the goji berry. Perhaps some of you have seen them. in the stores. So with quick rundown on goji berries, they are in the Solanaceae family. They look like small tomatoes. That's because they are in the same family. It's a deciduous woody shrub. It can be erect or clambering. It's a multi-branch, has some spines, and the fruits ripen unevenly. It's a very, very attractive shrub, and it is available for sale at different places. And it blooms and fruits from May throughout the summer. Bright red berries, and from summer to fall, that's when you will be able to start harvesting, and they are sold in many different ways. The dried fruits, they've been turned into sauces and covered with chocolate and all sorts of things. The plants prefer full sun. They'll tolerate some shade, and so far everything that I've read says that they grow in a very wide range of pH. So you may not have to do too much to the soil in order to get them to grow. However, if your soils are very clayish and retain a lot of water, that is not a good spot for these berries. They are hardy to -10, so we can go probably to central Illinois to that with those fruits. But they do like hot, dry summer condition, and they tend to track with rain at maturity, so that's something that you'll have to pay attention to the weather when you are growing this kind of fruits. Pruning doesn't seem to be necessary, only to shape the shrub. Non-fruiting shoots are in May. You remove those in May and June, and that seems to be the only type of pruning that is done on these berries. We'll go into blueberries, which is very popular and requires a low pH soil. It's a perennial plant that will last up to 30 years. Depending on the cultivar that you get, it can go from 1 to 6 to 8 feet. And start 1 year before planting, get your pH to in the low range, and it takes that long to get it there. Very important to maintain that soil pH by adding sulfur in the spring, or adding wood shavings, anything to get that pH to stay in that range. High organic matter. Mulch annually with wood shavings, and minimal pruning the first 2 years, and as year 3 you should have branches on there from year 1, 2, and 3, and that's when you'll start harvesting your berry. Or keep the center open for really good airflow and minimize diseases. This is a new release from the USDA, Sweetheart High Bush Blueberry. That came out in 2010. I found it at one nursery, and this one is one that will reflower in mid-autumn and bear again. And it is not a very huge plant. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to be able to grow it in pots. So that's another one to consider for a small backyard. Pink lemonade remains pink when it ripens. Again, it's another USDA release, and this one was done up in at the New Jersey station, and hardiness zone 6, so will not be good for the zone 5 and above. So, but it does remain pink. This is a Brazil berry release, again for small planting, 2 to 3 feet high, 2 feet wide. The foliage stays pink, peach, orange, and green, so it's very, very interesting plant, and remains evergreen in most climates. Most blueberry plants will lose their foliage in winter, so this one is probably a very attractive winter potted plant. So manage your diseases as best as you can by choosing disease-resistant cultivars. Be out there, pay attention to your plants, practice integrated pest management, be observant, uh, know what your plants require. Set up your spray schedule, whether you are using traditional sprays or you want to do organic production with the minimal amount of spraying. That requires vigilance to keep your insects population down. And whichever way you want to go with the fruits, pick one way and stick to it and enjoy your fruits. Thank you. I'll take your more questions now.
Christian County, can you tell me what zone the Brazelberries peach sorbet is safe in?
Let's see. It says zone 5 to 10. So zone 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's not zone 4. Since these are grown in pot, I would say if you are growing it into a pot, make sure that you pull the pot in a sheltered location for the winter, where it would be.
Champaign County has a question.
This is Lake County. I have 2 questions. Do you plant 2 types of blueberry bushes to cross-pollinate, or just one blueberry bush is sufficient?
For blueberries, you do need more than one cultivar in your yard in order to have cross-pollination. They do much better when you have 2 different cultivars.
My second question is, can you give me any information on Cape gooseberry? It is more from the like a Chinese lantern plant. The fruit is encased in yellowish husk like the tomatillo, just like a Chinese lantern plant.
I have not seen that one. It's called Cape.
It's called Cape gooseberry.
No, that one I have not seen. I'm sorry, I don't have any information on that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Livingston County.
Uh-huh.
How many years does it take in central Livingston County for a green gage plum to bear? Mine is 4 or 5 years old. It's about 10 feet tall. It's been pruned and it looks healthy, but no flowers.
No flowers?
No blossoms.
Have you had your soil tested? Is your soil appropriate?
I haven't had it tested, but it is good soil.
Well, it may need some of the nutrients because to get to get flowers, you do need phosphorus, potassium, and some other micronutrients for the plant to be able to bear. So I would have the soil tested to see if you are at the proper level for those major nutrients.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Champaign County has a question.
I have a couple apple trees, and just recently I've noticed some browning of the leaves and some dieback just on the ends of a fairly good portion of the one tree. It's now currently spread to a second apple tree just to the east.
Hello?
Oh, can you not hear us?
I just heard what you said, but I lost the end of a sentence. Do you have cedar apple rust in your area? Have you checked, if the tree has been sitting in a lot of water in the spring, you may have some dieback?
It would not have been sitting in any water, and it was healthy. All of the trees have looked very healthy up until about a week and a half ago when this first started. I thought it was maybe wind, because we've had some strong winds that had broken some of the limbs, and in checking further and watching it spread, it's definitely something either fungal. I haven't noticed any insects or anything on that. I'm not aware of the cedar rust. Is that what
Well,
you
we've had a lot of bacterial and fungal diseases affecting a lot of fruit trees this year, so I'm guessing it might be some type of bacterial blight. Have you ever had fire blight in the area?
Yeah, fire bite's really prevalent right now.
Okay, so the other thing to do would be to take a picture of that tree and submit that to the DDDI clinic and let us take a look at it.
Thank you.
But we've had a lot of fungal and bacterial diseases all spring with a lot of plants. There was a question, what should we do with potted berries in the winter, blueberries that have been potted? I personally pull my pots on the south side of my house to where the pots are receiving sun all winter, and I put some hay bales in front of them just to minimize chances of freezing the root zones.
Question from McDonough County.
Okay.
I was wondering which fruit trees needed another tree to cross-pollinate, or which fruits, I should say.
Peaches and apricots are more or less self-fruitful, and they will. Apricots are self-pollinating in a way, but they usually fruit too early for good bee flight, and always too windy or too cold. So really apples and pears really need a pollinizer to go with them. So when you purchase those trees, you do need to ask the nursery for, or consider putting a crabapple. And if you are living in a city, somebody's got a crabapple close by, and you probably will get pollen from that. But if you are not, then I would definitely consider adding a crabapple in the planting if you are doing apples.
Okay, what about cherries and plums?
Cherries as well. Cherries do need a pollinizer. And the sour cherry is not usually a pollinizer for the sweet cherry. So when you purchase your plants at the nursery, they should be able to tell you what is the best pollinizer for the variety that you are purchasing for your area.
Sonja,
Uh-huh.
we have a question from Perry County.
Okay.
Does she know an organic pesticide for apple and peach trees?
Organic pesticide for apple and peach trees. Do you know of one?
Organic pesticides for... I do have a list. Hang on, I will have to find it off the top of my head. I cannot answer you. But for insecticides, I usually use insecticidal soap or neem oil. It depends on what you're trying to control. A lot of practices, you do need to do dormant oil early in the season, and sulfur on the trees early in the season, late winter before the leaves and flowers come out, in order to control a lot of diseases, and especially scale insects. That's when the dormant oil comes in.
Is it too late for this
I
year?
have a question here on a large apple tree. The apples are getting damaged from codling moth. When do you spray for it? Codling moth needs to be prevented early on. I will have to look for let me look for my table, and I will be able to tell you. Any other questions?
I have Johnson County. I have a question about suckers.
Uh-huh.
I have some plum trees that I have to cut the suckers off
That
4
is
times a year.
Yes, that is something that apples and plums really, really do.
So there's nothing I can do to lessen the suckers?
Not that I know of. No.
Okay.
Champaign County has another question as well.
Okay.
Yes, I was wondering if you could speak to the mulching and fertilizing of the brambles.
Fertilization, you apply your granular in the spring, your granular fertilizer, but if you're using compost, that's usually not absolutely necessary. Compost, I usually about 3 to 4 inches of compost around the drip line, not against the plant itself.
So that would be in the spring?
In the spring. That's usually when I try to get a lot of that kind of thing done.
Okay, early spring we're talking.
Yes.
What about mulching?
Mulching, again, I do a lot of my mulching in the spring. After you clean up your plants, clean up your beds, and then put the mulch in. If it's this spring, I've not done that because it's rained too much. Not had a chance to do it. So once the rains start to slow down, that's probably when I will do it. But you have to judge what you have to do based on the weather.
Okay, and 6 inches again, like you said?
3 to 6 inches. Compost 6 inches, but if you're using a leaf mulch, you don't want it too high because it will take way too long for it to break down.
Sonja? Back to the organic pesticide, is it too late in the season to do that?
To do what? To apply?
Yeah, to apply.
Donut oil? Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Champagne has another question.
Okay.
Do you have any advice on raspberry cane blight? It's been going on for several years. I clean up everything in the fall and it continues.
Have you used any sprays?
Not lately.
Have you used any in the past?
Yes, I don't remember what they were. We sprayed regularly and then basically I've given up. So,
are there any, sometimes on raspberries, if you have some wild raspberries in the area, they keep reinfesting constantly, but really cleaning for diseases, that's the best thing, is cleaning up the infected canes, get rid of them, and monitor and apply, the sprays that you need.
Johnson County has a question.
Yes.
On peaches, I get brown rot on my peaches and my plums. I spray, I think like the container says. Can the spray go bad from year to year? Do I need to buy new spray every year? It's a fruit spray, it's supposed to cover several diseases and stuff. So I was wondering, does the spray go bad? Because I get brown rot even though I spray like I think the container tells me to spray, the schedule and everything.
A lot of the sprays will have expiration dates, but that's usually several years. Does yours have
Yeah, I bought it 2 years ago, and so
you may need to check and see. And are you applying it ahead of the disease, or are you waiting until the disease?
I do dormant spray.
Okay.
In the spring. I spray right before the buds open. I spray after petal fall.
You're still getting that.
2 weeks. I don't know if it's a 2 week or 3 week schedule. I've been spraying and I still get brown rot. And I pick up all the, the stuff that falls on the ground, try to pick up all the fallen fruit and everything, and I still get it.
Well, that's what I was going to suggest that you do. You are doing the right thing. It may be a case that you need, a better type of spray, but unfortunately the stronger sprays are not available to homeowners.
Right.
So that's the bad part.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've got a question in Morgan County.
Okay.
Hi. What time of year do you prune the pear, peach, and apple trees? I'm in Morgan County.
Morgan County. How far? Where are you in the state?
Central.
Apples are pruned. Would be the first ones to be pruned. Apples and plums. Peaches are pruned last. the peaches down here, we start pruning just as the buds start swelling, very, very late in the season.
The buds
So
what?
the bud starts swelling slightly on the peaches when we're pruning down here. But again, that's because we're pruning a lot of other trees. In January, a lot of the orchards down here in southern Illinois start pruning apples. So about a month later, February probably in your area.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with your zone.
Are we 5? I think we're 5, yeah. What about pear trees?
Pear trees would be pruned with apples.
Okay.
Peaches are the last one to be pruned.
Okay.
Okay,
I have a question from Lake County.
Okay.
For prevent the apple maggots from attacking the marble-sized apples that come in the beginning of June, do I spray for it in the first week of June, or what is my precaution for that?
A lot of insect problems have to be prevented before you even get there. So you have to, the maggot means that the moth has laid its eggs and the egg has hatched and is attacking the fruit. So you have to start spraying really, really early, much earlier than you think. Usually at apple bloom, that's when we will start spraying for a lot of insects. So depending on where you are, that's what you have to look for at when the tree starts blooming. That's when a lot of the flying insects are going to start coming in. And again, you have to be very careful when you're spraying for the very specific insects, because at that same time, the bees are also flying. So
if the apple bloom starts in Lake County in the first to second week of May, I'm looking to spray about mid-May or third week of May.
Sometime around there, that's when you would start. Apple bloom about 7 to 10 days after you start seeing pink in the flower, in the bloom.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that would be the same time that you would also start spraying for codling moth and at least monitoring for the flight of that insect. A lot of insecticide that we use will affect the bee population. So if you have very heavy bee flights around your orchard, that is not the time that you want to apply insecticide that will kill the bees. Gravenstein apples, I believe they are more of a southern region apple. You may try growing it in your area, but again, that's something that you have to try. I'm not sure whether or not you would have 100% success with it. You may have a cold snap that might kill the tree.
We have a question in Boone.
Okay.
Hi, I'd like to know if a codling moth is an organic trap made from
monitoring is there are pheromone traps that can be that are available, but usually available to commercial growers. There is Great Lakes IPM is a source that you could contact, or even Stark Brothers, and see if they do sell at the retail level for some of these traps. But monitoring is the number one in organic production, to make sure that the pest is around, because there is no sense in spraying if it's not.
Well, it's around, but I can't find it.
You can't find it?
All I can see is the damage.
Oh, you see the damage. Then are you putting a trap out with a pheromone to trap the moth?
Well, I ordered the traps, but they never arrived.
Oh.
And I read of a organic trap made from 1 gallon milk jugs, where molasses, cider vinegar, and a small amount of ammonia was put in. And I was wondering if I use that type of trap, will it attract my bees?
I don't know too much about bees, but that, and I'm not, I don't know about, the pheromones, because I am not an entomologist, or if that would work with that moth. I would have to ask Dr. Wensrel and see if that would be something that would work as a trap. But I would try getting the proper pheromone for that moth to make sure. Because once it's there, I mean, the damage, there are very few sprays. Let's see if I can find my list of organic sprays.
Have him light it up and send it down, and let her send him some.
Yeah, why don't you give me your name and I can look it up for you.
Okay, my name is Phil Rada, R-A-D-A.
R-A-E-A, and what county are you?
R-A-D-A. D is in Daniel.
Okay, and what county are you in?
Let's see, Winnebago.
Okay. And that's a codling moth, organic controls.
They'll have to call the Winnebago and let them know it's coming.
Okay, I will look that up and send it out to you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, McDonough County, you asked me to give you my name.
Yes, please.
It was about thinning out the crop in the trees.
Okay.
Patty, P-A-T-T-I-E, Riden, R-I-D-E-N.
Okay.
I'm from McDonough County. Do you need an email?
Yeah, that would be nice.
M-P-A-T-T-I-E and the digit 1, mpatty1 at yahoo.com.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Brenda for codling moth. Jenny Hanneran used the type of trap and did not seem to attract bees, but mainly moths. Are you talking about the organic trap with the what was it? Molasses that had been done? Okay. So that trap did attract moths and not bees. So thank you.
I have a question about grafting. Do you have anything about that?
Grafting?
Yes, I have an old pear tree and I want to graft it onto another pear tree. Do I need to plant a pear tree and then it's young, put that graft onto the main stalk of that?
Usually the type of grafting is usually done with dormant rootstock and dormant scion. So you would need to purchase a dormant rootstock. I know Moser Fruits in Michigan, he does a lot of grafting of old varieties and also does grafting commercially for a lot of orchards. So you might contact him.
Okay, and what's that name again?
It's Moser, M-O-S-E-R, Fruits.
Okay.
And I believe his retail arm of the business is Grandpa's Orchard.
Okay.
So you could collect the wood and then send it to him, and then he would do the grafting for you.
Okay,
But
yeah.
it's always fun to do your own grafting, or you can purchase the rootstock from him.
Well, I just want to, this tree is over 100 years old, and I'm afraid it's going to die one of these days, so I want to get something started before that happens.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a question here in Boone again.
Okay.
With the damaged fruit that's on the tree, that's been penetrated by the insect, should I just, right now, collect those fruits and then destroy them?
I would destroy them, because if you let the larva reach adult, molt and become an adult, then you're spreading out the moth.
What's a good way of destroying them?
I would crush them. Crush the apples.
Okay.
It's a lot of work, but definitely not compost.
Yeah, okay. Spread it. Thank you.
You're welcome. But the last slide gives you the name of the book that I use, and I also would suggest purchasing the Tree Fruit Insect and Disease Management for Backyard Fruit Growers in the Midwest, and that is available at the Extension office. This is my information, and please go online for your evaluation to the evaluation folder that was provided on the CD and report attendance numbers. Thank you very much.
What's this evaluation?
It should be on your CD. There is how to do an online evaluation.
I did not receive anything.
It's not on your CD?
I didn't receive a CD. I received no information in the mail.
Well,
I would contact your unit main office. Typically, we send the CD to your main office, and then they distribute it.
Oh, okay.
So someone in your unit should have the info.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonja.
You're welcome. Thank you.